Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to work out proportions and percent equation problems. So recall that a percent, it's a ratio that compares a number to 100. Here's an example. 21% when written in fraction form means there's 21 for every 100. 21 parts per 100 whole. And that part was key here too. Whenever you're given these percent equation problems, it's best to write them out in proportion form. We'll work out a few with the equation, but for the moment, what we're going to look at specifically is how we write each of these three approaches, and then how to find what we're looking for, whether it's the percent, the part, or the whole. And how that looks would be the following way. We'll have our percent value, whatever it may be, if it's given, over 100, and it will be equal to the part over the whole, whatever it may be. Now, when we're given one of these three instances, and we'll work out one of each, we'll be finding either the percent, the part, or the whole. This denominator will always be 100, even if we're working out problems with the percent value being more than 100, and we'll work out one of those later too. This is your initial setup. Percent value over 100 equals part over whole. Let's take a look at a few examples. This first one says, what percent of 80 is 18? So we're finding the percent value here. We have our whole and we have our part. So how we'll set this up? The whole under the part. So part over whole. What percent of 80 is 18? So we can solve this using cross multiples. N times 80 equals 100 times 18, which is 1,800. Dividing. My answer here will be a decimal, and that's 22.5%. So you will sometimes have percents or numbers that are decimals, and that's okay. It's also nice to go back and check your work to make sure you did it right too. If you plug in 80 divided by 18 into a calculator, you'll get 22.5, and that shows you that percent value. The next one here says, find 75% of 320. There are a couple different ways these problems can be worded differently. It might say, what is 75% of 320? Just another way to write it out. So now that we have our percent, what we're looking for now is the part, because it says of this specific number, 320. Let's use A this time. So cross multiply everything here. We've got 100 times A equal to 75 times 320, which that number is 24,000. This one will work out very nicely. No decimals here. When I divide 24,000 by 100, I get 240. Just to show you that there. That is the part that we were trying to find there. Now let's work out one where we're trying to find the whole value. 15% of what number is 24? So 15% of some number, which we don't know, is 24. 24 in this case is the part. So now what we got to do is find what the whole value is. Multiply everything. 15 times V equal to 100 times 24. And then divide it out. this gives you 160. Here we are. So let's work out briefly one example of when we're dealing with percents that are either greater than 100 or less than 1. Because these are interesting cases. One example could be, what percent of 90 is 135? So we don't know the percent value of 90 is 135. We can set this up using that equation format. This is the proportion format too. So we can actually work these together hand in hand now that I think about it. So the percent value, I wrote the percent sign just so we know that we're finding the percent. But this is an instance where that percent is greater than 100. If you multiply all this out, 90 times the missing value, I'll just call it x this time, equals 135 times 100. When you solve this, you will get 150%. That's a special case when your percent is bigger than 100. And real briefly, I'll do an example of when the percent is less than 1. So what is 0.48% of 250? In this case, what we'll have to do is write 0.48% in its decimal format, which when you take 0.48 and divide it by 100, you move your decimal point 2 places to the left. So now you have this number. And when you multiply it by 250, because of means to multiply, I'll drop references below to previous examples I've done of percent problems for reference, but this gives you the general idea for working with percents that are less than 1, or in sometimes a case where you have a percent bigger than 100. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you later.